me, please.
Go get her! Run faster!
Please help her escape.
The forest is waiting, and it is tonight.
Have you ever heard or seen a village where its people disappear every year and no one is allowed to talk about it, not even the families of the victims? Yet, the people living in that village all know something about it, and somehow, every one of them becomes a suspect. What could be the reason for such a yearly ritual? Sit tight and let us go to the village of Araba. Araba was a quiet village surrounded by thick forest. The trees stood tall and close together, like guards protecting something hidden deep inside the bush. To a stranger passing by, Araba looked peaceful. The people farmed, traded in the small market, and greeted one another politely on the narrow, dusty roads. But behind that calm appearance was a secret the villagers carried in silence. Every year, someone in Araba disappeared. No one talked about it. No one asked questions. And somehow, life in the village always continued as if nothing had happened. The first person who noticed something strange about Araba was a young teacher named Amani. Amani had not lived in the village for many years. She left when she was a teenager to study in the city. Like many young people who grew up in small villages, she had dreams that were bigger than the quiet life she left behind. She worked hard in school and eventually became a teacher. When the government posted her to Araba Secondary School, she was not happy at first. She had hoped to stay in the city where life was faster and opportunities were greater. But work was work, and she could not refuse the posting. So one hot afternoon, Amani stepped down from a small bus that dropped her at the entrance of Araba village. The air smelled of dry earth and firewood. Children ran around barefoot on the road. Women carried baskets on their heads, returning from the farms. Everything looked exactly the way she remembered it. Yet something about the village felt different. As she walked through the main path toward her aunt's house, she noticed people staring at her longer than usual. Some greeted her warmly. "Welcome back, Amani," an old woman said. "You have grown into a fine woman," another added. But after greeting her, many of them exchanged strange looks with one another. Amani noticed it immediately. It was the kind of look people shared when they were talking about something without using words. She ignored it and continued walking. Her mother's elder sister, Mama Sade, welcomed her into her small compound. Mama Sade hugged her tightly. "You are finally back," the older woman said with a tired smile. That evening, Amani sat outside with her aunt eating roasted corn while the sun slowly disappeared behind the trees. As the sky became darker, something unusual began to happen. People started rushing home. Women called their children inside. Small traders quickly packed their goods from the roadside. Within a short time, the path that had been busy just minutes earlier became empty. Amani looked around in surprise. "It is still early," she said. Mama Sade did not answer immediately. She kept staring at the road as if she was making sure no one was still outside. Then, she spoke quietly. "People in this village do not stay outside after dark." Amani laughed. "Why? Are there thieves here now?" Mama Sade shook her head slowly. "Just make sure you are always inside before night comes." There was something in her voice that made Amani stop asking questions. Later that night, the village became silent. Not the normal silence of a quiet place. This silence felt heavy. It was the kind of silence that made small sounds feel louder than they should be. Amani lay on her bed staring at the ceiling. Through the window beside her bed, she could see the outline of the forest behind the village. The trees looked darker at night, almost like a wall separating the village from the rest of the world. Just as she was about to fall asleep, she heard something. A scream. Amani sat up quickly. Her heart began to beat faster. The scream came again. This time it was louder. It came from the direction of the forest. It sounded like someone crying for help. Amani jumped down from the bed and walked to the window. The forest was completely dark. There was no movement. Then, suddenly the scream stopped. The silence that followed made her skin crawl. She stood there for a long time, waiting to hear it again. But nothing happened. The next morning, she mentioned it to Mama Sade while they were preparing breakfast. The older woman froze. Just for a moment. You must have been dreaming, Mama Sade said. Amani shook her head. No, someone was screaming in the forest. Mama Sade stopped again. This time she turned slowly and looked at Amani. There was fear in her eyes. Amani, she said quietly, in this village there are things people do not ask about. The warning only made Amani more curious. Later that morning, she reported to Araba Secondary School where she would begin teaching. The students welcomed her with excitement. Many of them were happy to see a young teacher who spoke to them kindly. But during break time, Amani noticed something strange. Behind the school building stood the same forest she had seen from her window the night before. Yet none of the students went near it. Not even during playtime. They played football in the open field and sat under trees to eat their food, but they avoided the forest completely. Amani called one of the students, a quiet boy named Chidi. Why does no one go near the forest? She asked. The boy looked frightened immediately. My mother said we should never go there, he replied. Why? He shook his head. She did not explain. That answer stayed in Amani's mind the entire day. That evening, she went to the village market to buy vegetables. While she was there, she heard two women whispering near a food stall. They have chosen already, one woman said. The other woman sighed. It had to happen this year too. Amani moved closer, pretending to examine tomatoes. Who did they choose? The first woman asked. A boy from the eastern compound, the second replied. Amani felt a chill run through her body. Before she could hear more, the women noticed her standing nearby and immediately stopped talking. On her way back home, Amani passed a group of elderly men sitting under the big mango tree at the center of the village. They were the respected elders of Araba. The moment she walked past them, their conversation stopped. One of them slowly turned his head to watch her. Another leaned forward and whispered something into the ear of the man beside him. They all looked at her again. The way they watched her made her uncomfortable. It felt like they were discussing her without speaking out loud. Amani greeted them politely. Good evening, elders. They answered slowly. Good evening, teacher. But their eyes followed her until she disappeared down the road. That night, the village became silent again. But Amani could not sleep. The words she heard in the market kept repeating in her mind. They have chosen already. Chosen for what? Close to midnight, she heard footsteps outside. Many footsteps. She walked slowly to the window. A group of men carrying lanterns were moving quietly toward the forest. Among them were several elders of the village. Then, Amani saw something that made her heart stop. Two men were dragging someone behind them. The person's hands were tied. The lantern light briefly revealed the person's face. Amani recognized him immediately. It was Chidi, her student. His mouth was covered, but his eyes were wide with fear. Amani's chest tightened. Without thinking, she grabbed her flashlight and quietly stepped outside. She followed the group from a distance. The men entered the forest. Amani hesitated for a moment. Then, she stepped into the trees after them. The deeper they went into the forest, the colder the air became. Finally, the group stopped in a clearing. Amani hid behind a large tree. From there, she could see everything. In the center of the clearing stood a wooden altar. The men forced Chidi to kneel before it. One of the oldest elders stepped forward and raised his hands. For generations, he said slowly, this village has kept its promise. The other men nodded. The spirit in this forest protects Araba, the elder continued. Our farms grow, our children live, our enemies stay away. Amani's hands began to tremble. Then the elder spoke again. But protection always has a price. Two men held Chidi tightly. The boy struggled helplessly. Tears rolled down his face. The elder lifted a sharp knife. The forest must be fed. At that moment, Chidi's terrified eyes suddenly turned toward the tree where Amani was hiding. Their eyes met. Before Amani could move, one of the elders slowly turned his head toward her hiding place. His voice cut through the darkness. "Teacher Amani," he said calmly, "we knew you would follow us sooner or later." Every man in the clearing turned and stared directly at her. And Amani realized something that made her blood run cold. They were not surprised to see her there. It was almost as if they had been waiting for her. Teacher Amani stood frozen behind the tree. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure the men in the clearing could hear it. For a moment, she hoped she had misunderstood what the elder said. Maybe they were speaking to someone else behind her. But when she slowly stepped out from behind the tree, every pair of eyes in the clearing remained fixed on her. There was no mistake. They had been expecting her. The lanterns the men carried cast long shadows across the clearing. The light danced across their faces, making their expressions look even more frightening. In the center of it all, Chidi knelt beside the wooden altar, his hands tied behind his back. His eyes were filled with fear as he stared at Amani. Amani felt a wave of panic rise inside her. "What are you doing?" she shouted. "Leave that boy alone." Her voice echoed through the forest. The elders did not react the way she expected. None of them looked surprised by her anger. None of them looked ashamed. Instead, the oldest elder took a slow step forward. His name was Elder Duro. Everyone in Araba respected him. He was the man people turned to when there were disputes in the village. Now, he looked at Amani calmly, as if they were discussing something ordinary. "You should not have followed us," he said quietly. Amani shook her head in disbelief. "You tied up a child and dragged him into the forest. What do you expect me to do? Stand at home and pretend nothing is happening?" Chidi struggled on the ground, making muffled sounds through the cloth tied across his mouth. Amani tried to move toward him, but two strong men stepped forward and blocked her path. "Let me pass," she demanded. Elder Duro raised his hand slightly, and the men stopped. "No one will harm you, Teacher Amani," he said. "But you must understand that what you are seeing tonight is not something you can change." Amani felt anger burning inside her. "Then explain it," she said. "Explain why you want to kill one of your own children." The elder sighed deeply, as if he had been waiting for this moment. "For generations," he began slowly, "the people of Araba have lived in peace. Our farms grow well. Our children survive sickness. Our enemies stay far from our land." He pointed toward the dark forest surrounding them. That peace did not come freely. Amani felt a chill run through her body. "What are you talking about?" she asked. The elder looked toward the trees before answering. "There is something in this forest, something older than this village, something powerful." Amani shook her head. "That is nonsense." The elder's voice remained calm. "Long ago our ancestors discovered that spirit. At first it brought terrible suffering. Crops died, strange illnesses spread through the village. Many people died." He paused. "Until the elders of that time made a promise." Amani's stomach tightened. "A promise?" she repeated. "Yes," the elder replied. "The spirit would protect the village. In return, the village would feed it." Amani looked around the clearing, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Feed it with people?" The elder did not answer immediately. His silence was enough. Amani felt sick. "You cannot believe this," she said. "You are sacrificing human beings because of some story about a spirit in the forest." One of the other elders stepped forward angrily. "Do not speak about what you do not understand." Elder Duro lifted his hand again, calming the man. Then he looked back at Amani. "You are educated," he said gently. "You believe the world only follows the rules you were taught in the city." He gestured toward the forest again. "But this place has its own rules." Amani turned toward Chidi. The boy's eyes were full of tears. "No," she said firmly. "This is wrong. I will report this to the police." Several of the men laughed quietly. The sound made Amani feel uneasy. Elder Duro spoke again. And what will you tell them? That you murder children in the forest every year. And what proof do you have? Amani opened her mouth to answer, but no words came out. The elder continued. Every year someone disappears from the village, he said calmly. But no bodies are ever found, no witnesses ever speak. He looked directly into her eyes. Do you know why? Amani did not answer. Because everyone in the village understands what is at stake. The clearing became silent. Then the elder added softly, if we fail to keep our promise, the spirit will take more than one life. Amani shook her head. This is madness. Elder Duro looked at Chidi sadly. The boy was chosen by the elders, he said. Chidi began struggling harder, shaking his head desperately. Amani felt her chest tighten. You cannot do this, she said again. The elder turned to the men holding the knife. Prepare the offering. The men stepped forward. Chidi's muffled cries filled the clearing. Amani's heart raced. Without thinking, she rushed forward and pushed past the men blocking her path. Stop, she shouted. The clearing fell silent again. Elder Duro looked at her carefully. You are brave, he said. But bravery cannot change fate. Amani stood between the men and Chidi. You will have to go through me first, she said. The elder studied her for a long moment. Then something strange happened. He smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that made Amani's stomach twist. You misunderstand, he said quietly. Amani frowned. What do you mean? The elder slowly walked closer to her. The boy was never the true offering. Amani's breath caught in her throat. What are you talking about? The elder looked around at the other men. Then he spoke the words that made Amani's blood run cold. You were. Amani stared at him in shock. That is impossible, she whispered. Elder Duro nodded slowly. The ritual must be performed once every year, he explained. But every 20 years, the spirit demands something different. Amani felt the ground beneath her feet seem to disappear. What does it demand? She asked weakly. The elder looked directly into her eyes. It demands the blood of the family that made the original promise. Amani's mind spun. My family? Yes, the elder replied. Long ago, your ancestor was the one who made the pact with the spirit. The words echoed in Amani's head. My family started this. The elder nodded. And every 20 years, one member of that bloodline must return to complete the promise. Amani felt cold all over. That is why you were sent back here, the elder continued softly. The spirit called you home. Amani shook her head in disbelief. No, that cannot be true. But deep inside her mind, something began to connect. The strange looks from the villagers. The whispers in the market. The way the elders had watched her since she arrived. They had known all along. She turned slowly toward the dark forest. The trees seemed to move slightly in the wind. And for a brief moment, Amani thought she saw something between them. Something watching. Something waiting. Behind her, the elder spoke again. The spirit has waited long enough. Amani turned back slowly. The men had surrounded her now. Chidi was no longer struggling. He was staring at her with a mixture of fear and pity. Amani realized something that made her heart sink. They were never planning to sacrifice the boy tonight. He had only been used as bait. The entire ritual had been arranged for one reason. To bring her here. Elder Duro raised the knife. Forgive us, he said quietly. It is the only way our village can survive. Amani felt the cold night air against her skin as the men stepped closer. Behind her, the forest seemed to breathe. And for the first time since she returned to Araba village, Amani understood the terrible truth. The village did not simply feed the forest every year. The forest knew exactly who it wanted. And tonight, it wanted her. Amani's legs felt weak as the men closed in around her. The knife in Elder Duro's hand glinted under the lantern light. Behind her, the forest was silent. Too silent. "This is madness," Amani whispered. "No," Elder Duro replied calmly. "This is survival." Two men grabbed her arms. She struggled, but their grip was too strong. Chidi began shaking his head violently, tears running down his face. The elder raised the knife higher. "Once this is done," he said, "our village will remain safe for another 20 years.